whether they're large-scale collaboration, whether they're user diaries or blogs, whether there's flexible content, whether there's in-depth analysis, and whether there are calls to action or fundraising. And what we saw was that the left used technologies differently. Whenever there was a plugin into WordPress that allowed user diaries to actually be on, the left used it, the right did not. If we look at sole authorship, the right used sole authorship, the left less so. If we used at large-scale collaborations like Daily Cost, where lots of people are contributing as opposed to 3 or 4, much more on the left than on the right. Diaries or blogs, which actually give people more of an ability to speak than just plain comments or forum entries, much more on the left than the right. The flexibility with which the content, as we saw with the diaries and people flagging and saying this should go on the front page, the use of those techniques where the secondary content, not the primary authors, but all of the other contributors can come on, much more used on the left than on the right. This is less important. The other thing that we found is on the top 65 blogs, calls to action and fundraising also much more on the left than on the right. So one of the things we found in this study is that whether you see the net as this new model that I at least and others have been describing as potentially more action enabling depends on whether you looked at the left or the right. It was not technologically determined, it was culturally embraced in certain ways and different ways on the left and the right. So this picture of a in the relevant domains, let's keep it to the end, in the relevant domains symmetry is false. Because in the relevant domains of participation, the actual practices are covered up by the link analysis instead of exposed. You need to dig deeper. No single effect. Now, is this the social psychology claims about why left and right, hierarchists and individualists versus communitarians and egalitarians? I'm less of a fan of those explanations. I think the explanation is more of a particular historical one, right? In 2002, when the blogosphere largely emerged, the right wing had all structures of government in its hand. It had talk radio as a major source. It had the churches as a major source of organization. The left had a small number of relatively low circulation publications. So the left grabbed onto this new medium and built it. Which of these two? We'll see as we go forward. But the point here is that the tool can mask, not only reveal. And you need to understand the limitations of the tool and dig deeper. The main questions beyond deliberation and fragmentation are participation, visibility, and agenda setting. How do we develop new text-based tools? New theoretical questions. A big question. This is still an elite. This is probably still on the order of single millions of participants, a few million participants, out of a country of about 300 million. I'm now talking about the US, but I think it's representative of the set of interesting questions as changes from place to place, obviously. But this is what I know about, so I'll talk about what I know about, not what I don't know about. How do we think about people like Barbin MD? That bloggers are more politically knowledgeable and activated. Do we think that it's bad that the activists, your point about Lippmann, do we think that it's bad that the activists can speak more because we don't get the audience as a mediator? Or do we think that actually what we get here is a much better informed and potentially activated large-scale active politics? It's a big question, and it's one that is theoretically grounded, but needs empirical investigation to see what the practices in fact are. And the last question that Obama Girl raises, and that other things that I may or may not just sort of put on the screen as teasers for the conversation, is the question of cultural power and the power over cultural symbols and the ability to communicate. So let's look a little bit in more detail at these bursty kind of participations of in this case, individuals. So what do we have here? Let's calibrate again. This is the visibility of The Economist. This is on economics issues. This is the visibility of The Economist. This is the visibility of Daily Costs. You see around the election, roughly the same. After the election, when it's less activated, a little below. This is the New Republic over here. Here are two blogs by professional economists. In the red is Marginal Revolution. They are conservatives, right of center economists. In the blue is Brad DeLong, left-wing economist from Berkeley. When I say left-wing, I mean in American terms. Let's not get too excited. What's interesting is that they're visible. I mean, Marginal Revolution actually hits the New Republic at a certain point. But the point is they're visible at certain points. In this case, discussions about the bailout that I'll dig into a little later. In this case, criticism of the stimulus plan is what's driving this. They become the central, most methodologically rigorous critique of the stimulus plan. And they get linked to quite a bit because they're methodologically serious, but on the right at a time that everybody else is just sort of, we don't know what to do and how to talk about this. But the point is they appear. They're visible. Here they are. What do I mean by an attention backbone? Here is where Brad DeLong is roughly. This is a little bit of a cheat, but bear with me. This is where Marginal Revolution is. You see, Marginal Revolution generally is more central. Brad DeLong is way out there, invisible. But the reason that he can get seen is that he is himself tied to a series of higher level, more visible blogs that point to him. So that when he makes a point, it's fine if I just read these, because he exists within an attention backbone that, again, without these kind of mapping tools that will tell us who's linking precisely, we are left guessing about the structure of the attention backbone. As it is, we can actually say, okay, the reason that he can be seen is because these higher, more observable structure so you've got a tightly clustered community of interest of activated people. Among them, there are also superstars. The superstars read the mid-superstars who read the non-superstars, and they form an attention backbone. And we see this. We can actually observe it. So we have things that are close to facts. Then the next frontier, the big thing that is a real next big tool is text analysis. As I said, the transcript is the interaction. And text is really hard to do well. So one of the projects that we have, and things that I know you're intensely interested in, is trying to figure out text analysis. And this is one of the systems we're building is Media Cloud, where we're scraping about 1,500 of the top blogs and 1,000 of the top mainstream media sites, cleaning up the stories and making them available to text analysis. And at the moment, beginning to build just toy tools that allow us to do more computer assistant human research than actual automated algorithmic research, but we're trying to build a relationship with others who are interested in text analysis to actually do better text visualization. So this is a project looking at the use of the term bailout during the initial period of the debates in various places. So one of the things, what you see here is words that appear in this particular case in Brad DeLong's site more than they appear in newspapers. This is as a tag cloud. Over here, what you see is a timeline of where particular of the top most visible things, where they spiked. So you can tell when, and then you can click through this to the actual original source and see what it said there. Swedish was an unusual word, and the reason is that I thought, we'll see, provisionally, the reason is that Brad DeLong was the first one, I thought, saying that we need to look at the Swedish nationalization as an alternative to the stimulus plan. That just we need a temporary nationalization as opposed to the stimulus plan. An idea that is not speakable in American politics, at least wasn't. So here he is, dumpy and interesting as he looked. September 26, 2008, this looked like it was the first time. How does he get there? So suddenly you see Matthew Iglesias, who's a more prominent blogger, again, suddenly talking a lot about Swedish. And here he's talked about it so much that you can actually see that it happens once in September around Brad DeLong's statement. So he's the first hop, as it were, in the attention network. And then again, as the debates over the stimulus